Welcome to Strait Science. Strait Science is an evening science seminar series put on by University of Alaska Fairbanks, UAF, Northwest Campus here in Nome, and also UAF UAF Alaska Sea Grant. And you're in the work office tonight. And UAF Northwest Campus and UAF Alaska Sea Grant. We are public servants of the Bering Strait region, and we serve all peoples of the Bering Strait region, which is the homeland and waters of the Yupik, St. Lawrence Island Siberian Yupik, and Inupiaq peoples. So tonight we're very happy to have Leann Fay from Sitka. Now in the background, you think she's on the beach and it's summertime in Unalakleet, but she's actually in Sitka. But that's okay. We like that background. Very nice. So Leann Fay works and is a researcher and trainer for the Alaska Marine Safety Education Association, which is down in Sitka and is lovingly known as AMSEA. And she has been doing a project revolving around commercial fishing safety in our beautiful Norton Sound. Also with us, actually in Unalakleet, and she will join in later. Is that right, Leann? Is Melanie Segunik. She is a commercial salmon gill netter, 2 years retired. So she's watching how we all do it, and she can provide sage advice and knowledge on all things commercial fishing in outside of Unalakleet for sure. And she's joined. If we get a caller, know that callers will get preference as far as questions and things like that, because it's hard to be a caller on a Zoom call. You can't raise your hand or flash your face or do anything like that. So I'll be monitoring the chat box. I think given this night, Leann said if anyone has any questions, they can just ask them underway. Is that right?
Yeah,
Leann?
Feel free to just jump in and ask a question. You can also type it in the chat and Gabe will bring it up. So I don't mind being interrupted.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll hand it over to you, Leann, and let us know how we can improve safety at sea in Norton Sound. Thank you very much for coming, and this is an important one.
Thank you. So I'm Leann. As Gay introduced me, I'm a trainer and researcher for Alaska Marine Safety Education Association, and a large part of what we do is commercial fishing training. And I would also like to let Melanie give a chance to say hi and introduce herself too. She was the research assistant and a significant contributor on this project.
Well, thank you. My name is Mayorak. That's my Inupiaq name. It means to climb. I'm Melanie Segunik. I'm from Unalakleet. I was born and raised in the region. I have 2 wonderful children, and I am very happy to be a part of this project. So thank you, Leann, for inviting me to join you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this study was funded by the Pacific Northwest Center for Agricultural Safety and Health, and it was conducted through AMSEA. It's on improving commercial fishing safety in Norton Sound using knowledge shared from Alaska Native commercial salmon set gill netters out of Unalakleet. So the need for this study, commercial fishing is one of the most hazardous occupations out there. It has a fatality rate 29 times higher than other occupations. Commercial fishing fatalities are decreasing, fortunately, but fatalities for American Indian and Alaska Native workers are increasing. And then the fishery itself, salmon set gill netting, is actually one of the most hazardous fisheries in Alaska. This is National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health data. It's the latest report that they've put out here on Alaska commercial fishing fatalities. And so on the left, you can see the different fisheries. And if you look at the top, that's salmon set gillnet. So the red, let's see, I have to move my my face box, but the red are fatal vessel disasters, and then the blue are falls overboard. So this gives you an idea of how dangerous it is as a fishery. And so the goal of this project is to improve commercial fishing safety in the long term, hopefully reduce commercial fishing fatalities in this fishery. And it's the plan to do that was using knowledge shared from Alaska Native fishermen. And the study interviewed 10 fishermen. It's an exploratory pilot study, so it's kind of a mini study to just get a general idea and to just dive in. And the goal was to understand factors that influence safety and hopefully use that to inform training and education and resources and just next steps. So I'm going to let Melanie just give a little background about the fishery and what it's like fishing in Norton Sound.
So fishing, whether commercial, herring, or subsistence in our region, in our community, is a way of life. And in most cases, like Unalakleet and community surrounding, is a family business. In our culture, we not only put fish away for the winter months, but we also rely on commercial fishing to help provide financially, help provide financial stability for our families, especially in the long winter months. Commercial fishing is a lifestyle and is a main source of income for the majority of our people in our region and in the state of Alaska. This summer, I know of six communities in our region active in commercial fishing, with a total of 98 permit holders, with 48 being from Unalakleet. We gillnet fish for king salmon, chum, pink salmon, and coho using open skiffs, roughly about 20 feet in length or larger. So our fisheries start if there is a herring fishing. That's the first fishery that opens. And then later in July, we start pink salmon fishing. And what the Alaska Department of Fish and Game does is it gives fishermen maybe a 12-hour opener just to see how the fish runs are. And then depending on the run, they'll either leave it at 12-hour openings, and then it will, maybe move to 24 hours. And then once the salmon are running smoothly, and there's a lot of fish being counted in the rivers, then they'll make the openers longer. Say, for instance, usually at the peak of the season, there'll be 2 48-hour openings in a week. And fishermen, they set their net, like I said, it's open skiff, so they do a lot of hands-on, throwing the anchor out and setting the net. Sometimes people set the net in the ocean, or other times they'll put one anchor on the beach, and then the person that put the anchor on the beach will run quickly to the boat, and then they'll set from the land outward. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so that gives you kind of a good picture for anyone who doesn't know what the process is like. And so I mentioned it's an exploratory qualitative study. It used semi-structured interviews using an interpretive phenomenological analysis So the goal here was to try to get an insider perspective of, what it's like to be a fisherman, and what are they experiencing? How are they making meaning out of their commercial fishing experiences? And so I came to Unalakleet. To recruit participants, I had a radio broadcasted, flyers posted on Facebook groups and in hard copy. And then I did when I got to town, that was before I got to town. When I got there, I did a coffee and donut meet and greet, and met some folks and just kind of told people about the study and just kind of walking around. And it's such a lovely place, so friendly. And I recruited 10 participants, which was the goal. For the inclusion criteria of who to include in the study, it was for people who identified as Alaska Native commercial salmon set netters. So we had some people who were retired, 3 people who were retired, and 7 who were active. We had 1 female and 9 males, and then the age ranges varied. All the way from 30 was our youngest and 80 was our oldest. So a lot of great knowledge. There were some elders. And then the fishing experience, the minimum, so this was not an inclusion criteria for the study, for how much experience they had, but the least experienced person had 17 years experience. And then the most experienced person had 36, I want to say. So just tons of knowledge from these participants. And the interviews were done face-to-face. They were audio recorded. And just, I was trying to get an idea of kind of from the beginning to the end, like, how did you grow up fishing? And people, a lot of people, their story started when they were babies or very young children, just being out on the water, and asking people to share stories, unique challenges, like who taught them how to fish, and lessons that they learned, how they prepared, survival equipment, strategies to stay safe out on the water, experiences that made them feel unsafe, just really anything that they wanted to share to the general fishing community. And so I transcribed interviews and created, also with my notes, I created first many clusters and kind of sub themes, which turned into major themes on factors that influence safety. So I'll just go through with different slides to cover these and explain them. And I have quotes to illustrate the different themes. So fishing with family, we can call that a major theme. And then those 4 bullets below, those are sub themes. So, people, almost everyone learned from some family member. One person learned from an elder in his community when he was a little boy, and so he didn't learn from his family. But that was a common theme, is fishing and learning from family, especially grandparents, and getting a lot of knowledge and wisdom there. Parents, uncles, cousins. I'm going to move the. And then safety attitudes and lessons are passed on by family. So I can read a couple of these. Pretty much everything I learned about safety, about going out, was from them, my grandparents and my dad. And then another quote on that theme, safety attitudes being passed down. It always depends on the family. So that's, that was kind of explaining like how you learn to wear a PFD, or if you don't wear a PFD. And as Melanie pointed out, there's a strong connection between commercial fishing and also, subsistence or traditional harvest activities combined, and teaching the next generation. So also Melanie mentioned fishing is a lifestyle. A lot of, I would say most fishermen love it, or even obsessed with it on some level. But here's a good quote. I enjoy it. When I'm out there, I'm free. I'm my own boss. To me, that's a big thing, being your own boss, doing your own thing. And so that's another sub-theme, being self-sufficient. A lot of people participated in many, multiple fisheries. So, and, fishing for just years over the span of their lifetime, and doing other things like maybe being a pilot, but also coming back to fishing. And then another theme with this is kind of a challenge to it, but being difficult to keep fishing even, as you age. Fishing is a lifestyle, and it's hard for me to put it aside. And that's where I'm at. So another theme was survival equipment, preparation, and training. As Melanie mentioned, these are mostly open skiffs in the 20-foot range. So there's so much skill of these fishermen knowing how to drive a skiff, especially in big water and big waves. To go along with equipment, especially working for AMSEA, we're always trying to see, if people are wearing PFDs, and if they're not, why not? So I really have to point out this theme that came up. People, they have mostly type 3 PFDs on the boat. They put them on, especially they want to wear a PFD when it's really rough out. But the type 3 PFDs are hot, they're bulky, and they're an entanglement hazard. So a quote here, I don't want to get tangled in the net. You don't wear PFDs when you're checking net. So that's actually like the strategy to stay safe is actually not wearing a PFD. So we can talk about that later. But to try to get PFDs that are not hot, and not an entanglement hazard is really key to increase the wearability of PFDs. And people also provided really just like helpful tips of what they carry on the boat as safety equipment: PFDs, an oar, or oars, anchor, water, bilge pump, signals, cell phone. That one surprised me, but that's a main way that people communicate and would communicate a message of help. Working motor line, tarp was one good one. Like someone at one point made a sail when they lost power and they got back to town, having a life ring to bring someone back on board. And then the quote there, you don't want to be dead in the water out in the ocean. And that was a story where water was in the fuel. So just very much like making sure that you're taking care of your motor is a very big deal for safety out there. And then for physical health, almost everyone mentioned like the very positive physical health benefits, but then also some of the older fishermen were saying, but now I have some joint aches or arthritis. So yeah, I'm almost 60, keeps me in good shape. But then the negative, you're always rocking, so it's really tough on your body trying to keep upright. Another physical health challenge would be financial stress, especially just stress of fishing in general. Like if you're not catching enough fish, that could have a long-term effect. And then people shared really helpful strategies. So one participant said, I do make sure I stretch. I can see my dad and how he calls it a back issue, back problem, but I know for a fact that it's him not stretching. And then this one is super important. Man, if I had to almost pick a theme, this is what people reported as just the key to safety out on the water. Like how to be safe, pay attention, respect the ocean, be aware, know what's going on, watch all the signs, be sharp. So especially in the fall, weather can be very rough. The quote next to that, I've been out in Norton Sound where I've seen 20, 30-foot waves. Another theme, knowing when it's time to come in. You respect it. Learn to get off when it's time. The ocean's the boss, it's the boss. And then another one on that. You can replace the net, but you can't replace a life. So knowing when it's time to come in, even though you want to keep fishing. And then being observant, current, wind direction and speed, tides, things in the land that you can sit there and look out at Besborough Island and use that as a weather indicator. And just being aware of where you are. And then people shared stories of falls overboard, capsizes, fatalities. And so something that kind of emerged for me was the nature of just one mistake could lead to death out there that people pointed out. So being overloaded with fish, that's a big risk and creates a stability hazard. And someone said, that's the biggest danger that we have here for fishermen is the determination to make money over safety. And he's talking about making that choice to, okay, we can take on more fish. You know, you want to get as many fish in the boat as you can, but then now you have a stability hazard. And with a quote that went with a story of a near miss of a fall overboard. He said, I didn't really think like I almost could have died, or holy cow, I almost fell in. In my head, I was thinking I would have been able to get myself out. But come to think of it, that was a whole lot more dangerous than I thought about it at the time. And then going back to the fact that these are, you know, open skiffs in the 20-foot range, driving or maneuvering a boat, a small boat in big waves. And also being very aware of any entanglement hazards, whether it's the net or your anchor line and organization of lines so you don't get entangled, or, you know, like a PFD into your net as it's going out, or if a wave comes and you could get caught in the net. And then lastly, changes in fishing over time. People have noticed changes in fish populations, species and sizes, frustration too on that topic with feeling, you know, like bycatch of trawlers and climate and salmon disasters. And then with climate change, there is rougher weather that people are experiencing during their key fishing time, where it used to be calm, and also changes in wind direction. And so I think it's important to point out that with climate change, if there's rougher wind or changes in wind, that can make it certainly more hazardous, especially open skiff fishing. I'll go back. So those are the themes. Melanie, do you have anything you would add from this, or do you want me to go back to any slide, any stories to share?
When I started commercial fishing, I was a teenager, maybe about 15 or 16 years old. And I had actually reached out to Leann after she did the interviews here, because I wanted to be one of the 10, interviewed, or, because I had I wanted to share my dad's, what he did when my cousin Jerry went overboard. And anyway, I shared it with Leann, and now here I am with, helping her, helping her do research. But anyway, I had just started commercial fishing, and my dad, Jerry, and I were just coming, we were coming back. The opener was closing. We were coming back, taking our time, but a wave hit the side of our boat, and my cousin Jerry was at the bow. My dad was driving it, and I was on a little, a bucket, I wanted to be closer to the ground because it was choppy out. And anyway, a wave hit, and I went flying to my left. And then when I composed myself, thinking, what happened, I looked towards my dad, and he was just pulling himself up with his left hand, because his body went halfway out of the boat after the wave, after it hit, and, the boat was trying to, become stable. Anyway, I looked up front, and Jerry was gone. So I said to my dad, "Where's Jerry?" And I got up real quick, and I stood up and looked up, and there Jerry was in the ocean. And my dad had told me right when the wave hit, he had the emergency kill switch wrapped around his wrist, and he had told me, and I didn't know this until then, but he had the kill switch wrapped around his wrist. So when the wave hit, he pulled the kill switch, which made the motor die. And thank goodness, because my cousin went flying forward, and we ran over him, but thankfully the motor didn't hit him. So anyway, I proceeded to try to grab an oar to try to get my cousin Jerry, but my dad told me, "No, don't use an oar." And he told me that I might knock him out. And, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, yeah, you're right. And so I put that down, and then I threw a safety ring, and thank goodness we got him into the boat, and he was okay. And he did have to kick off his hip boots because they're filling with water. Thankfully, they weren't attached to his jeans, otherwise it would have pulled him down. But that was one important thing I wanted to share with Leann at the time. And, I think it's important too to share in case, other drivers might want to use this important safety idea, or, so.
Yeah, we do in our AMSEA trainings, we encourage people to use a kill switch.
Yeah, and at the time with the oar situation, when he told me don't use an oar, you might knock him out, I at the time didn't receive any kind of training or any kind of safety, anything really. So I just, trust my dad and what he had to, I just listened to what he said and did as he said. So thankfully Jerry was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question. This is Gay in Nome. Were you guys wearing a life jacket at all, or just?
No, we weren't.
No, yeah, wow. So that's quite a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's just like Melanie's story. There were so many stories that were just like incredible, kind of survival and trying to think fast, and yeah. So for Melanie and I, we after completing I can't even say completing the study because we're still presenting and we're still doing outreach. But we presented at the American Indian and Alaska Native Injury and Violence Prevention Conference on this. And then also for Panache, we presented to them. Also with the help of Jacob Ivanov, I have to give him credit too. And Melanie and I, we created a checklist. So it's a sticker, but it also went on, like it was posted on kind of a waterproof bag too. So 2 different versions of this checklist. But yeah, it has pre-departure information, equipment that you might need, and just tips to be safe on the water. And that's really lessons learned shared from people's stories. And, you know, hearing about what PFDs worked and didn't work for people, I found this PFD, which is, you can't really tell, but it's pretty free compared to most other life jackets of entanglement hazards. So it's pretty smooth, like even the zipper is hidden. So we ordered 30 of those because we had outreach funding, and they have yet to be distributed. But what I'm going to do, I'm either going to develop a training and do a commercial fishing training, and the PFD can kind of be an incentive, or at the very least, just a short training that could be something virtual or online, like a video to watch for just how to use the PFD, because we also have rearming kits, but they'll want to know how to be able to rearm it after if it gets inflated. So that's another kind of outreach that came out of this. So there was one story that was shared where someone capsized and then he swam to shore, but then he realized his cell phone was floating in his coat, still in the water. So he went back after it. He didn't have a life jacket on either. He made it, and he grabbed the jacket. His phone was wet, but he was able to make one phone call. Now he's 30 miles away from town, on shore, and there's like a landslide, and so it's not easy to just get back to town and walk back to town. So anyways, he was able just miraculously to get one phone call out. And so he called his cousin and they sent search and rescue, and they made it to him. But that kind of made us think this was Melanie's idea. Like, what about something for a phone? And so this isn't necessarily perfect for a phone. But it's a dry bag, and it's, as far as I know, it's a pretty good dry bag out there at Seal Line. So we made a sticker, another type of sticker that is on the bag, and then also we put information about the study results, and then try to see if people are interested in taking a training, and then also tell them that we have these PFDs to give away. So that's kind of like a nice way to say thank you to the community, and also to share the study findings. And then, is there anything, Melanie, I'm just yapping, is there anything you wanted to add on the development of either of those? Or
I think the PDFs, the inflatable ones that you had chosen, were a wonderful idea, because when I did use a life jacket out the ocean when it was rough, I did get stuck on the net many times, and I did feel safer without having the life jacket on, even though it was a little, choppy out. But I did feel more safe without the jacket on. But you just have to trust who you're with too, and and know what you're doing. But I really like the idea about the inflatables. So
Yeah, a lot of people said, well, I think, either that they've had one, but they don't have one anymore and it worked for them, or yeah, I would probably wear that and not actually take it off, feel like I needed to take it off to be safe. So that's the idea, that people put it on, because often people put them on and then take them off. So if you put it on and then you leave it on, if you find a PFD that works. And also for next steps in research, we're going to submit an article to the Journal of Agrimedicine. And I should also just mention study finding recommendations. I think the main thing would be to have a tailored training, because this is a unique community. It's a unique fishery. And so it would be great to have training and outreach that it uses knowledge from set netters, and it's tailored for the open skiff fishery, because it's different than a lot of our other commercial fishing safety training. So yeah, and to just whatever research is done to work with the community. And we right now, Melanie and I are working on applying for a NIOSH grant that it's not specific for Alaska Native set netters, but it's just in general, it's just commercial salmon set gill netters, and it's going to focus on Norton Sound, and then also Bristol Bay set netting and Yakutat. So hopefully we get that funded. Yeah, if anyone watching this presentation wants more information about that too, please reach out. Pretty easy to get a hold of at AMSEA. Let's see. Do you have anything else to add, Melanie?
So part of the grant that she's applying for, some of the community-based activities we came up with for the future, and I thought it'd be fun too to maybe have a logo making contest for commercial fishing safety, or then we also thought about a commercial fishing photo contest where maybe the any photos that are submitted, maybe we could make safety posters. We also thought about a storytelling event or a video contest. Also a survey asking fishermen what would benefit them, or what would they like to learn or take away from what we're doing.
Yeah, so it's all part of the research design where it's kind of not developed. So we go in and just work with commercial fishermen and all sorts of marine stakeholders, sea grant agents, if there's a village public safety officer, a CDQ group members, fishery organizations, people who work at the plant, really anyone in the industry or people in the community who have lessons to share, or just want to contribute, want to make, in general, improve marine safety. Basically get all these people and see if they want to participate in a study, but it's also, it's a development of a training. And so the training, the commercial fishing training, is specific, kind of developed by this focus group. And then not just the training, but then the outreach, like Melanie is saying. And then to evaluate that and the effects of the training and of the outreach efforts. So that's the plan. Yeah, and that is all we have prepared for you. But we are here to answer any questions or to have any discussions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Leann and Melanie. I think that was really interesting. Does anyone have any, oh, you got some hand clapping going on the, so yeah, if you're
Thank you,
a Strait
Julie.
Science speaker, it's always good to put in a little love in the chat box for the speakers because it is never easy to be a public speaker. And we don't have a big crowd tonight, but certainly this will be on the recording as well. So I guess they won't see the chat box either, but know that Leann and Melanie will. So, so it's always nice to pop in something. I have a couple questions, but first, does anyone else? Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, thank you, Leann, and thank you, Melanie, for sharing your stories and your work here with us. I'm on the AMSEA board, so I know Leann, and I also teach AMSEA safety training here in Kodiak, and mostly to our commercial fleet obviously looks different than yours. And as I was looking, Leann, can you go back to the PFD? I had a question about the PFD that you are distributing.
Oh yeah.
Is it a manual release or is it a hydrostatic?
Oh, it's hydrostatic.
Okay, I couldn't tell.
But you can
Um,
you can pull
right.
it manually. And
Right,
it's pretty like tucked in the little yellow part. So
Right.
hopefully it won't snag or anything.
Right. That was one of our thoughts here. I'm sitting here with Arthur Schultz. He's also an instructor here. And my first thought was the regatta bibs are really popular for our net fishermen. But then I realized that you guys are jumping into the water. So you're wearing hip waders. You mentioned how people are getting in and out of the water. Anyways, my thought is, I wonder if somebody would take the time to specifically try to design a PFD very specifically for set gillnet in the type of fishing they're doing, because most of the other PFDs are focusing on the little bit larger commercial fisheries. So it's just an idea perhaps to throw to NIOSH, anyways, but yeah, because the regatta bib is really, really nice in some ways, but it wouldn't work if you were jumping in and out of the water with, needed to wear hip waders on there. So
What is the regatta bib?
it's it has inherent flotation up in the chest. It's a rain gear, like rain pants, but
is it the storm line?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the
That's
same.
other brand.
Oh,
brand.
Art says that there's two brands. I only have the regattas, but basically it's a bib, just like your overalls, but then the flotation is up in your chest and there's nothing that's catching on anything. So I know it's a popular format, popular PFD with the net fishermen, but again, wouldn't work with the hip waders. Anyways, it is a unique fishery, and we have set gillnetters here in Kodiak, and I honestly haven't been able to provide very much training to them, and I've been wanting to direct some attention. So I'm very interested too, either in your study or potentially collaborating here. Our set gillnet fishery will look a lot like what Melanie is describing, because we anchor on shore and then go out and pick in the skiff. Anyway, so thank you, and thanks for continuing the work, and I'll let the other questions come through.
Yeah, Melanie, do you want to add?
Yeah, the hip waders, not very many people use them here out the commercial fishing, but my cousin did at the time because he didn't have no rain pants and he was just here for a few weeks over the summer, and he wanted to help my dad and myself.
Okay. Well, if it's not the typical scenario, then you might also want to look at those bibs. My only thought with the hydrostatic release is that it's hard to ship and it's expensive to rearm. So if you're having to ship your rearming kits around the small communities in Norton Sound and in the Bering Sea, then it's going to get tricky. But
that is such a major yes, absolutely. That's a major problem.
But yeah, thank you. I'm glad the PFDs are getting out there for people to use.
Yeah,
Thank you. And
thanks, Julie. And I think that's actually, I love that idea of actually having gear designed. Wouldn't it be nice to have gear that's designed for some of our regional commercial and subsistence maritime activities that actually isn't for some other activity, you know, but it actually fits for what people are doing, whether you need to swing your arm or you know, for whatever reason. Anyway, that's a great idea. So
That
go
is a
get
great
that, Leanne.
idea.
And Melanie,
Yeah, I'll go get
change
that.
up, get a whole new catalog.
Leanne, how
of
come we didn't
your-
think
I
about
mean,
that?
flotilla here.
We'll apply
Seriously.
for it.
And Wes has been patiently raising his hand, waiting. So go ahead, Wes, we see you.
Hey, good evening, and thanks for the presentation. I'm a commercial fisherman here in Unalakleet, or a part-time commercial fisherman, and I've fished actually some with Melanie and her and my wife's cousin off and on. But one of the things that I just going to make the comment when you're talking about safety that for our household is really important is I have an older son who fishes here. I also have my wife, my daughters, and my younger son. And something that's really important is we set our weather standards that, you know, if this is what it's blowing out, and here in Unalakleet, and Melly could will attest to this, that it's extremely important the direction of wind. So you have different, you know, wind speeds for different directions, but we set, you know, hard and fast. If it's blowing this, we don't go out. The bigger one that I think is really important is those numbers change by who's in the boat. For example, when and actually then this last summer, we had to change those levels and lower them, the wind conditions. After I had COVID, I was not near as strong afterwards. And so we had to drastically reduce at what levels of weather conditions that we could go out. So I think that's another aspect that you have your safety standards, but then depending on who's in the boat, those standards will change drastically. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I think that's what would be so cool about a tailored training is people could share, you know, have an opportunity before the training to share certain tips and information like that. Because almost everyone I interviewed had specific rules, like, but it was different for everybody. You know, like if it's 15 and it's blowing from, you know, this direction, this many knots, we go back. So yeah, sharing all those very specific tips, especially as, you know, if the climate changes, then people can kind of collaborate, and that could, you know, we could try to help facilitate that. Yeah, just good information.
All right, so you've got a nice comments in the chat. One is great presentation, particularly about whether or not to shove an oar at someone in the water. So that was a good like lessons learned listening to that. Julie, this is a really great operational plan to have set standards and not be exceeding your own rules. So are you guys, is your project, are you hooked in with the Coast Guard, like District 17? I mean, I sent them a notice of this and I thought for sure they would be really interested, but they're not on right now, but maybe there's something, they're busy with something else right now. But are they tracking your project? I just think it's really interesting.
You know,
Safety?
I'll have to get on Jay with them so often. And he was just in a meeting with them like yesterday. So I'm pretty sure they know about it because he always talks about the project and what's going on.
I wonder if the Coast Guard that come here seasonally know about it. I know they're more and more of a presence and they're staying longer and things like that. And I think knowing there's a program looking at how to make things safer, and I think they might, I don't know how they'd help, but they might be able to do something in some way, or at least should know about it for sure.
Yeah, no, that was like we have certain vessel examiners, not any that I know of specifically for Unalakleet, but thinking of Bristol Bay, that people were telling me, oh, this person, they would want to be invited to the focus group and be a participant. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
We see the Coast Guard more and more coming up for those kind of things. They were doing like fuel drum assessments and kids don't float, things like that.
Great.
So, all right, thank you both so much, Melanie and Leann. Any other questions or thoughts for either of our speakers? All right, then before we sign off next week, and I just sent you, Melanie, I'm sorry, I don't know your email address, but maybe Leann can forward it on to you. I sent the poster, which I'll start sending out now that we've finished. For next week's Straight Science, the NOAA Fisheries in Seattle has done, their social scientists have done a look at the red king crab fisheries, some of our changes in Norton Sound regarding king crab in the last couple of years, and for regional subsistence and commercial harvests. They've interviewed quite a number of people, I guess, and they want to see how they're going to be able to use those local voices to make better management strategies and things like that. So I don't know if you're going to be interested in that, but I sent you the notice anyway. Maybe I'll put you on the mailing list for Straight Science. We'd love to have you back, and we totally support your efforts. So thank you both so much.
Great.
Oh,
Thank
Julie's
you,
got her
guys.
hand.
Sorry, I had one more comment.
Yeah, go for it.
I also love the end product, the dry bag with the checklist on it. It's a pretty awesome way to go. I really like the checklist.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
you,
I was even
everyone.
thinking it might be cool to have like a pocket where you can even insert your float plan and your emergency information or something in there. But the checklist dry bag is cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
All
All
right.
right,
Thank
and
you,
when
everyone.
you guys, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. When you guys have your Unalakleet photo contest fundraising calendar for more safety gear, sign me up for that.
Will do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what we do in Nome. Everyone's like, yeah, make a calendar, sell it, and it's good. It's a good fundraiser. So with that, thank you all so much, and hopefully we'll see you next week.